In this video, we're continuing Chapter 2 of our discussion on Barbara Ehrenreich's Nickel and Dimed. In this chapter, we're going to talk about Barbara's two jobs that she has to serve in order to survive working in Maine. Right, a weekday job working at the maids as a house cleaner, and a weekend job working at an institution for Alzheimer's patients, feeding them, serving them, looking after them, and so forth, right? But going back and talking about the maids, right? Let's start off by talking about the wages, right? Barbara notes on page 72 that the maids charge $25 per person hour, right? $25 per person hour to the people whose homes they are cleaning. But Barbara only gets $6.65 for every hour that she works. So essentially, right, there is $18.35 difference between what Barbara's getting paid and what the company's getting paid. Where's that money going? Well, I'm sure some of that money is going to transportation cost to get Barbara where she needs to go. Some of it's probably going to supplies, right? In order to, because the maids have to use certain supplies in order to clean the homes. But the company management is probably making a good $8, $9. Even with, because there's not really a good healthcare policy that these maids employees are getting, so it can't be the healthcare costs, they're incredibly high. So the company is getting this money. Maybe some of it's going to taxes, but still, the franchise owner or our boss is probably making a lot of money. And Barbara notes this. The company is exploiting the wage power, the labor power of these employees. And I might also add here that most of the people who are having their homes cleaned probably think that Barbara and her fellow employees are making very close to very close to $25 an hour. Maybe $20 an hour, maybe $18 an hour, but they can't imagine that Barbara's really only making $6.65 an hour. I can't imagine how they would, right? They don't imagine that corporate capitalist scheming. The author also notes, Barbara also notes, right, that on page 75, that we scrub only to remove impurities that might be detected by a customer, by hand or by eye. Otherwise, our only job is to wipe. Nothing is said about the possibility of transporting bacteria by rag or by hand, from bathroom to kitchen, or even from one house to another house, right? I mean, again, the issue here is that the visual is all that matters, right? The visual is what keeps the customer, is what makes the corporation money. Who cares that the job is a really badly done job, right? And Barbara has this really impulsive person who wants to do a job well. But no, Barbara, you don't do a job well. You follow what we taught you in the training video. You just make it look nice, right? So that people are happy. Now, they get sick because, you know, their counters are infested with some germs from some other home. Who cares, right? On page 79, Barbara notes about how when people think of maids, they picture minorities, right? They don't picture Caucasians. She tells this, she gives an example from Maids in the USA, Perspective on Gender, a book from 1992, published by New York Routledge, page 72, where she says, where she reports one woman, one African-American woman, who was shopping, and she said, I wheeled my 2-year-old daughter in a shopping cart through a supermarket, and a little white girl riding past in her mother's cart calls out excitedly, oh, look, Mama, a baby maid, right? You know, again, you see these African-American people, and you say, well, they're maids, they're the underclass, they're supposed to serve us, right? I think of A Raisin in the Sun and the problem that that family faces, right? Lorena Hansberry's brilliant play, and how difficult it is for that family to try to make their way in the world. And of course, they're in the serving classes. But anyway, on page 84, Barbara talks about some of what she has to do in her job. Right? You know, what does my job at the maids require of me? And she talks about how she's forced to scrub. She and her fellow workers, right, part of the given team for which she works, they're forced to scrub floors on their hands and knees. And again, on page 85, she notes that they basically obtain no sympathy from those who are employing them, right? In fact, those who are employing them often, if they're home, they meticulously watch and make sure the maids are doing their jobs correctly, right? Page 86, she notes sometimes these house cleaners, right, for the maids are locked out of their houses. Locked out of the houses they're supposed to clean, and then they have to try to get in some way. Not a very fun job, right? You know, it's a horrible life. I think it's a horrible life. And on page 87, Barbara writes about how she experienced severe skin irritation from some source, maybe from the latex gloves that she was wearing or from some of the cleaning chemicals. She doesn't really know for certain. But again, I mean, imagine, you're the reader of this book or you're watching this video, right? Imagine how powerful chemicals might affect you if you had to engage in such a job as Barbara does, day in and day out. I mean, Barbara at least can afford the medication to combat the irritation caused by her allergic reaction. Imagine this kind of situation for people who can't afford it. Imagine feeling like you have poison ivy all over your body, right? Or even worse than that, you're constantly scratching, you're in bed at night, and you're moving around just trying to get comfortable. Barbara just basically phones home to one of her doctor friends, one of her dermatologists that she knew in West Keys, and she bludgeons him into prescribing something without even seeing her, right? Anti-itch cream, prednisone cream, and Benadryl, right? But that costs a lot of money, right? Barbara only can afford that because she really isn't a low-wage worker. Imagine what it would be like for her if she really was a low-wage worker. She wouldn't be able to afford that cream. And on page 91, she notes a similar thought. Page 91, she says that, I am now, and I quote, I am now a productive fake member of the working class. But it's because I haven't been working in any hard physical sense long enough to have ruined my body, right? I'm only so productive in this job because I haven't yet basically ruined myself. I haven't completely allowed my labor power to be bucked out of me, essentially. I mean, that's what she's saying. That's my terminology I'm using, but that's what's really happening. She's slowly but surely losing her health while working in this job, this horribly physically exerting job. On page 91, Barbara talks about when she, was not a member of the working class, when she's writing, right? Which of course she is a writer. She's written quite a few books. But when she was, even in her own job as a writer, she rejected the idea of hiring a cleaning lady. Even after she claims all of her upper middle class friends had, even though they were guiltily and covertly as possible, hiring cleaning people for themselves. And again, Barbara says, I never hired a cleaning lady because it's not the kind of relationship I want to have with another human being. And I agree with that. I mean, hiring somebody to clean your home, what kind of a relationship is that with another human being? It's really slavery. It's hired slavery. But it's still slavery. And if you're a low-wage worker, you don't have a college education or even maybe a high school education, what other kind of jobs are you going to get? It's not like you have really a choice. You're very limited. So it's de facto slavery, really. And then Barbara writes, in 1999, I'm going to quote, in 1999, I guess it's from page 91, in 1999, somewhere between 14 and 18% of households employed an outsider to do the cleaning, and the number is dramatically rising. I didn't even expect that number to be that high, but supposedly, according to that study, it is. It might have gone down, since 2008 and the recession and so forth, but still, I mean, what kind of relationship is this for the underclass to have to engage in that kind of activity? On page 92, Barbara talks about how cleaning toilets isn't fun, and she gives some pretty graphic examples. She talks about finding pubic hair on page 92 as well. Page 93, she notes how owners of these homes have been known to leave tape recorders going while we work. The video cameras are another part of the lure, positioned near valuables to catch a cleaner in an act of theft. I mean, these people wanting to tempt these employees to steal something from them. And of course, it's all about alleviating their own guilty consciences, right? If they feel they can catch a maid, one of the maids, stealing from them, they can be like, see, these are trash people anyway. They'll steal from us. So if we steal from them by making them wage slaves for us, who cares? Barbara then talks on page 94 about the kind of books that these people read, right? She talks, and I quote, as for books, at the low end of the literary spectrum, which is where most of our clients dwell, I find Grisham and Limbaugh. And by the way, I know that to be true. I've been in homes of people of that class, the upper middle class. They read Grisham and they read Limbaugh. Maybe Hannity as well, right? Or Michael Savage or somebody like that. That's where their IQ rests, right? I know that some of my bourgeois relations love Grisham and Limbaugh. Right. Now, even the residents that had, the higher end literature, I wonder even if they read the literature, right? I mean, sometimes people who have money might have the higher end Acrivians on their work shelf, right? Maybe Montesquieu or Rochefoucauld, but they're not really reading somebody like Rochefoucauld or, Victor Hugo's Les Miserables. I mean, they're not reading these works in French, right? They're just showpieces, I'm sure. On page 97, then, Barbara notes about how one of the employees, Holly, she's even working through the nausea, right, that she faces because she's pregnant. Right? And imagine, I think, also what that must be like for the baby inside of her when she's scrubbing and working. I mean, what kind of child is she going to give birth to? And all the chemicals Holly's around. What effect might that have on her child and the quality of life her child's going to have? On page 100, Barbara notes that even other low-class workers look down upon maids and they think of maids as being stupid. And imagine what that means, right? When people think you're stupid, what effect that has on your psyche, right? You can even start to believe in yourself as being stupid because of how other people see you. Well, in the next video, I want to talk again. I want to finish talking about Chapter 2, Scrubbing in Maine. I hope this video was enjoyable, or at least that it was informative and that you may have learned something from it. Thank you.